Welcome back to Community Design Review, where we look at some of this week's best designs from the Custom Magic subreddit, as voted on by you, the community. Our shoutout this week is Obsidor Insurance. It costs black for an artifact treasure with hexproof. You can't lose the game. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a premium counter on Obsidor Insurance, then sacrifice a treasure for each premium counter on it. And when Obsidor Insurance leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. Interesting. This is a really cool design. So usually treasures are tokens that sacrifice to add mana. So the fact that this is a treasure subtype but does not sacrifice to add 1 mana of any color feels a little weird. However, I understand why they did it, and for this design, it's really cool. The idea is you pay 1 black mana to start, and then for as long as you control this insurance, you can't lose. But then it effectively has cumulative upkeep. Instead of paying mana, you're paying treasure, which is also kind of mana, but it's a specific type of mana. So eventually, you're going to get to the point where you run out of treasure tokens, and you're going to have to sacrifice this card because it is a treasure, and at that point, you lose the game. So that's a really cool design. So you can kind of use this as an Angel's Grace to get out of some sticky situations. So I would probably play this in like a deck with a bunch of you lose the game cards like Pacts. But then you also need treasures. Actually, not necessarily. You could put this down and then you could play a bunch of Pacts. And then on your next upkeep, you could stack the triggers such that all the Pacts go off, you don't pay, and you don't lose the game, and then you sacrifice Obsidor Insurance. So this is a really flavorful design, and I could see it, in fact, being a good card as well. Our meme card for this week is Embody of Progress. It costs X green for a creature mutant beast with Embody of Progress enters the battlefield with twice X +1/+1 counters on it, and whenever you would put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, you may fill an empty ability slot instead. Ability slots are the shapes with keyword abilities written in them on this card. To fill an ability slot, put the corresponding keyword ability counter on the ability slot. This is a creature that you can upgrade to get Vigilance, Flying, Hexproof, Lifelink, Evolve, Trample, First Strike. Evolve? Wait, Evolve's on here? Okay. I have designed a card like this before there were keyword counters, and it was really difficult. Even after there were keyword counters, I would have struggled to find an elegant way to design a card where you can add on abilities modularly like this. And putting it on the art is a really cool idea. This is a really well-designed card that probably wouldn't work in Black Border. So let's say you play this for 4 mana. It enters with twice X counters. So that would either be a 4/4, or a 3/3 with 1 ability, or a 2/2 with 2 abilities, or a 1/1 with 3 abilities. I can see now why they gave Evolve as an option. It gives you no immediate benefit, but once this creature is out, it has no way of getting more counters except through Evolve. So that makes sense. It was just a bit jarring because Evolve is generally not a keyword counter. Coming in at number 5 this week, we have Customs Officer. It costs 1 and a white for a 2/1 creature human with Flash, unnecessarily capitalized First Strike, and if a player would draw a card, that player puts that card into their hand instead. If a player would discard a card, that player puts that card into their graveyard instead. Okay, so we've seen a similar card to this before, but just for the first half of this last ability, where basically what it does is remove all draw triggers. Instead of drawing a card, you're just putting the card into your hand, which is completely different. It won't trigger things that say whenever you draw a card. And then in the same way, this card prevents actually discarding a card. Instead, you just put it into your graveyard, which again is effectively the same thing, but it won't trigger things like Madness. This is an interesting little hate bear. That's pretty much all it's going to be used for. I mean, I guess 2/1 Flash First Strike for 2 is pretty good by itself. Moving on to number 4, we have Lepida Dreambloom Moth. This is white and blue for a legendary creature insect, 2/2 with flying, and whenever you cast a spell from exile or a permanent you control enters the battlefield from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on Lepida Dreambloom Moth, and remove a +1/+1 counter from Lepida to add red. Interesting. So it is a commander that cares all about playing things from exile, things like Cloud Shift. And you would have the Mist Hollow Griffin. You can also use this with the new Foretell mechanic, but I won't go on and tell you everything that you can use with this, because part of the fun of commanders is being able to figure out what exactly you're going to do with it. And this is nice and open-ended to give you lots of options, so really cool design here. Our number 3 card this week is Decaying Ghoul. This sounds like a really cool card made by really fun and interesting people. It costs 1 and a black for a creature zombie, which starts out as a 2/2 with level up 1 and a black. At level 1, it becomes a 1/1 with when Decaying Ghoul dies, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. And at level 2 and up, it becomes a 0/0 with when Decaying Ghoul dies, you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. So this was designed to be a really solid draft uncommon for black. The idea being that it starts out as a fine if unexciting body, 2/2 for 2. And then you can trade that card off, you can hit your opponent for damage for several turns, but once the game progresses and it becomes outclassed by 3/3s, 4/4s, whatever, you can turn it into a 1/1. You can chump block something huge, effectively gaining you a bunch of life and also replacing itself. Or, of course, you can just turn it into a 0/0 that will instantly die and draw you 2 cards. Now, one comment that we have received from a lot of people is that the level up ability should only cost a black. And while that would probably be fine and an acceptable level of power, we really don't like that design. And the reason why is that when you're making a level up creature, you want each level that the creature can reach to feel integral to the design, something that you might want to use. And I feel like if the level up ability only cost a black, everyone would always decide to only resign themselves to leveling it up 2 times in a turn to instantly cash in their creature for 2 cards. And that is probably the best way to use it, but we want people to actually consider the possibility that if they just have 2 extra mana laying around, oh, maybe I should level this up on 1 turn. If I need to chump block with it, that's fine. If I get to the next turn and I can level it up again to draw an extra card, well, that would be fine too. We really want there to be an option and a reason to use the level 1 ability instead of just trying to get it to level 2. And you could say that's a problem with the design of the card, that people want to reach level 2 and not use level 1, but that's just how level up works. You always want the last level, it's the best, but you need to make sure that each level along the way is also impactful. But enough about our card. Moving on to number 2, we have Sisters of the Siren Sea. It costs 1 blue for an enchantment creature, Saga Siren. Okay, chapter 1, put a defender counter and a wither counter on Sisters of the Siren Sea. Okay, that's an interesting way to get around it not having abilities, aside from its chapter abilities. Chapter 2, until your next turn, target creature attacks you if able. So they're going to run into your Siren. And Chapter 3, gain control of target creature with a -1/-1 counter on it. That's a really cool design. You will sacrifice the enchantment creature at the end because it is still a saga, and the power level seems fine. Yes, it is a 3-mana mind control, but you have to wait 2 turns to get the mind control, and the creature you're stealing is a little smaller. And this is a really sweet way to use the saga frame in a new way. Also, look at that art. And our number 1 card this week is Noren the Brave. It costs white for a 2/1 legendary creature, human warrior. Noren the Brave can't block... Noren the Brave can block creatures with menace, intimidate, and or fear as though they didn't have those abilities. No more running, it's time to face my fears. Wow, this is a really cool design. So Noren the Wary has been a meme card for a long time for being a really kind of hard card to use and also just being completely a coward. Cowards can't block warriors. But now you color shift him into white and you make him brave, and now he can block creatures as though they didn't have the frightening abilities. Menace, intimidate, fear. These are all words that evoke that you are scared. And now the fact that he's able to block these creatures, this is really cool. Of course, he has only 1 toughness. So that means if he blocks a creature that has any of those abilities, he will die. Because you don't have one of those abilities if you have 0 power. So maybe find a way to help him out, because he's finally making something of himself, and it would be cruel to just let him die. That's all for this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you thought about these cards. We'll be back next Tuesday with another community design review.